soccer, but at least NFL, because it is a little more bigger, they probably, publicize a little bit more. But top players will say, you know what, there's been off seasons where I even thought of killing myself.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what I'm saying? And it's just like, what? You're at the top.
You got the money, yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So it's, and I get it. So how did that idea come about, like making sure you get that mental health coach here?
I mean, everything we do as a club is completely different than I think most of what other sports teams are doing. Our purpose statement is like to harness the magic of Oakland and the power of sport as a vehicle for social good.
Okay.
And so when you just take that alone, like, it is our duty to ensure that we're creating a club that is actually contributing to society and community. And so we are one of the only sports teams in the United States that donates 1% of our ticket revenues, staff salaries to social impact causes in Oakland.
Wow.
We, during the pandemic, when other clubs were putting out statements about Black Lives Matter, we created the Anti-Racist Project, which brings sporting teams together to talk about like racial and gender equity and equality in the sport of soccer. We try to really lead with that in every single way.
Right.
And so mental health is a major component of the game, and no other sports team is doing it, and we thought it was important, and so we did it.
Yeah.
And now, it's really helping everyone, and it's creating happiness. So
yeah, and I honestly, is what you said. I think you can kind of see where Edreece plays his part, and then where Oakland plays their part, right? And I think it's you being able to grow up in Oakland, right? Because you're a Bay Area native, right?
Bay Area native. I was born in Oakland. I been around the block. I spent a significant time in Central Valley as well. So I tapped in with the folks out in the Central Valley as well, and I came back to the East Bay. Live there right now. Wifey lives with me. She's working out in downtown.
Okay.
And Oakland is a big contributor to my identity and how I speak and how I think and how I see the world. And I think most of the Bay Area is like that as well, right? Like, we think that the Bay Area culture is a lot of other cities combined, but I would say for the most part, Oakland has a major contribution to the fabric of the identity.
Yes.
And, we see it in the music, we see it in our style, our swagger. Yeah. And, I think that's something just the entirety of the Bay Area should embrace, and we do.
Right.
I mean, we all are very proud of being from the Bay Area.
Yeah.
We're a little different out here. The water different.
And that's one thing I've noticed about people from the Bay Area is like you said, we're super proud to be from there. And I think it's important to have more people like you, to where the foundations of the city, meaning like their very own soccer team,
right.
the founder or the CEO or at least someone who's kind of making sure that the city aspect is being added to it,
totally.
Is there.
Yeah, I mean, bro, let's peel it back, right? I mean, I'm a son of two refugees from Afghanistan who came from Afghanistan to America because of war.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Because of the Russian invasion. We see Russia be doing a lot of funny things lately too, but that caused my family to come to the Bay Area and seek refuge. This was everything. A lot of people talk about the American dream and the life and the vision. For my family, who have never seen anything other than the war that they experienced, the Bay Area was the beacon of light and hope for them in their life. And it was the principles that we were raised on as well, And so I'm 32, I'm Afghan, I'm a first generation Afghan American, living in the town, being born in the town. I think, I wear that shit on my sleeve, man, and I'm not afraid to.
Yeah.
And I think it's our duty, especially even when we have things like a professional sports team that have the name of the city in the crest, in the identity.
Right.
We have to actually live up to the obligation and duty to like fulfill what the community wants of the team.
Right.
Funny enough, man, we're out of the old Raiders facility right now.
Yeah.
And the Raiders up and dipped, Warriors up and dipped.
Yeah.
And I think that just goes to show that sports in America has always been about where can you make the biggest buck, not how can you build an asset that lives 200 years, 300 years.
Yeah.
It's why our hashtag is Oakland First Always. It's why everything, you know, everywhere you look, it's Know Your Roots, it's 510. It's because it's our identity, and it's our fabric. And we try to make those decisions every day with that lens. Yeah. Some people might not see it right now, but in 5-10 years, when, you know, the next generation of kids come out of Oakland and the greater Bay Area, the 510, right? You know, that's when you're gonna see, you know, ballers out there, and we're gonna know that this shit is working. So,
and I think the main thing is you're building a solid foundation. Because if you build a solid foundation on anything, you know, you're able to build, like you said, for years now. Yeah. You know? Yeah. So where did that idea of thinking, like you said, 100, 200 years in advance come from?
I mean, it comes from the concept that, like, life is way too short. Okay. You know? And for me, I want to be able to be here and do things that are impactful. From a very young age, bro, like, I wouldn't partake in anything that did not lead to long-term impact in society, for me, for my family, whatever. Wow. I just thought it was a waste of time. Yeah. I also think money's a waste of time, right? Like, it's a concept that we all created in our heads. You need it to be successful, for sure, but it's not the end-all, be-all. And I've tried to live my life as a creative as much as possible, making decisions that are really, you know, based on, like, humanity, the output and the quality of life for people, the impact, opening doors and leaving them open for people. I mean, if you're not doing that, then I think there's something fundamentally wrong with the intent, right? And that's how I move, right? Some people don't move like that, and that's okay. But that's really the premise for the things that I do in my life. And then when I came back to the town after entrepreneurial stints and, like, shaking and moving and trying to do my thing, you know, I had this concept with my fellow co-founders, and it's not a singular person's job. This is so many people contributed to this project, bro. And, you know, we all came together and said, you know, why not build a soccer team that does it differently, that moves different, that has dope merch, you know? I don't rock Warriors stuff or any other team stuff on a normal day-to-day, but I can throw on this Oakland Roots hoodie and, you know, I can pull up to Fashion Week or, for sure, you know, whatever. And that's the type of, like, brand and identity that we wanted to build. We care about design. We care about aesthetics. And oftentimes, bro, I think brands, this is the biggest issue with brands in general, is that they think that they can just create something and people will appreciate it. I think you have to be able to create a value for someone. You got to tell the story to someone. Right. And you got to build a way that makes them feel connected, you know? And that's kind of what we did from the start, is tell stories and stay rooted and stay tapped in, do the hard work in the streets, you know? Being present is key. And that's kind of what we led with in the early stages.
And it's, I honestly, I think it's important because I can just imagine, you know, especially one thing I've always said, I lived in Oakland maybe about 6 months. And one thing I always said about Oakland was everyone from Oakland is super prideful and it's very cultural. And I love every single part of it. And I think, you know, when you have something that's your own and you're building the foundation that you're building, where it's like, you know what, every intent every move we make, it's going to be based off just not only my decision, but as a collective. I think that's when you're really able to actually build something for a city. And then that's when you're able to, like, really build that fan base that's able to support you and take you to that next level. 100%. Because, like you said, it's like people buy the message, you know, like people, like, this is just a jacket, but as soon as they threw on this logo on it, boy, I'm paying that $100. But, you know, they're the best team in Europe. So you're a big Man U fan, right?
I love Man U.
Okay.
I'd say, like, out of the English Premier League teams, Man U is definitely the team. Yeah, but I'm a big Italian soccer cat, man. Like, I love Italian soccer. I'm, you know, my coworkers joke, have you ever seen that NBA jacket that has all the logos?
Yes.
So, like, you could probably throw on all the logos from the Italian league, and I'm rocking it. Okay. Because I just rock with Italy, rough, and, you know, my little sister played professionally.
Oh, wow.
She played at Santa Clara. She was a captain, but she played in the Serie A in Florence.
Wow.
At the highest level for women, and also played in the Bundesliga in Germany. So, you know, I also got married in Italy, and, like, you know,
so Italy's like you.
Yeah, man. It's like, it is what it is.
Unfortunately, they didn't make it to the World Cup this time.
Yeah, that's a little rough.
Next time.
A little rough. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so yeah, talk to me about, like, for example, your upbringing a little bit more, because like I said, I was kind of doing my research on you, and one thing I found out was there was a big pivot in your life, and that biggest pivot was when you were about to go to medical school.
Yeah.
But you said someone had pushed you to go a different route.
For sure.
So can you talk about that?
Yeah, I would love to, man. Yeah. I mean, first of all, being brown and being a first generation, our parents, God bless them, the only thing they want is the best for us.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's something that I will forever be grateful for my mom and dad. Yes. Is like they wanted me to be happy and healthy, successful.
Right.
And, when people come to America, the only thing they really know is, oh, doctors are successful, engineers are successful, so on and so forth, right? And then along the way, man, I started to figure out, like, man, this shit isn't the only thing on the world, I can start doing my own thing, and I can be creative and still be successful, and be artistic and still be successful. And I really fell in love with the nature of being an entrepreneur and starting new things. Yeah. My philosophy in life is I try to accomplish things at the 80% level of proficiency, and then I want to get to the next thing. Wow. And that's just how I've built my brain and I've wired myself. Is like, all right, DJing was something I picked up like in the past 6 months. I feel like I got it at 80% proficiency, and now I'm like, all right, let me make beats, and let me, like that's how I challenge myself, and I love the nature of that. And being an entrepreneur, being in this space, allows you to do those things where like every day is a new challenge at Roots. Every day is a new opportunity to grow, and I've never gotten sick of it here. And so every day I'm hitting that, like, okay, I got this done. Let me focus on the next thing. And so, yeah, man, I like I mentioned to you, I was born and raised, born in Oakland, raised Bay Area, went to UC Davis. Okay. I double majored there. I did biological sciences and economics. I did biological sciences because my parents wanted me to become a doctor. Right. I did economics because I was like, I'm not really feeling this. Okay. And after doing some internships in NYC at Translation LLC, Sean John, Bad Boy, shout out my cousin Sarah who gave me that opportunity. I remember, man, my first task at Sean John was like ironing Diddy's pants and like delivering it to him, and like, yeah, and I like accidentally woke him up from sleep, so I got my ass cussed out the first task. I know, man, it's crazy. So I'm like 19 and I'm delivering Diddy's pants, and he's yelling at me because I woke him up from his sleep, so those experiences, man, was crazy. And like I spent, full days on set 106 in Park at BET, and like I was interacting with T.I. and I was interacting with and I was young as shit, and I was like, man, this is possible. You just have to be able to put yourself out there, and sometimes when you don't understand, you have to fake it a little bit, and that's how you understand long term. You almost condition yourself to like understand things that are uncomfortable. And then I came back, man, finished up college. I reached a point where like I had to make that decision.
Well, my bad. What was your mindset throughout this whole time? Like, is it still, I want to eventually own Roots, or what's your mindset
I was just trying to create. I was trying to do something, and I didn't quite understand what it was that I wanted to do. I just knew that I needed to keep trying. Okay. And sometimes that's the move, is you just keep trying new shit until one sticks. And so after the whole New York stint doing BET, Sean John, so on, I came back, finished up college, and I had to make that decision of like, where do I go? What do I do? Yeah. And that's when my grandma passed away. And my grandma, before she passed away, she was very clear about the fragility of life. And she was talking about how, she spent the entirety of her existence helping keep the family afloat and helping keep everyone healthy and safe. And she said, look, do what makes you happy, and follow really what your passions and your dreams are, as cliche as it is, when someone's passing and that's the thing they tell you, it's like, that's the most important thing you can take, And so I took that with heart, man. And I told my parents, they were a little heartbroken that I didn't want to go that route. Spent some time working Apple, where I co-managed a couple of retail stores.
Okay.
You know, I had a little gig on the side, and I built a startup, raised a little capital. Didn't do well. That was my first startup, and it led to, unfortunately, like not a successful ending. But I learned a lot from that.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people think that like sometimes you have to deconstruct to construct, and that's exactly what happened to me in that moment. Is like everything felt like deconstruction. Everything felt like it was gonna blow up, but then I was able to harness that uncomfortability into like inspiration, and I funneled it, and I did not get angry. Most cats in this world get angry, bro.
Yes.
They get bitter just because some shit don't work for them.
Wow.
Man, I'm off that.
Yeah.
Like that shit for me is poison.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of cats do that, and I've seen them turn into monsters and hurt themselves long run. And quite frankly, like I'm not a religious person, but I believe in God, and like that's not the way of God. You know what I mean? Like God is very forgiving, God is very patient, and you have to be able to forgive yourself sometimes. So, you know, that's the phase I was in, and then you know my startup tanked. I got my MBA, which was awesome because I got to network and meet a lot of people that were trying to shake and move and do the good things in life. And I didn't do it because of the paper.
Okay.
I did it because it was the networking, right? The diploma's diploma, but like I did my MBA because I knew that like if I got it, it would open a door for me.
Wow. And
so I came back to the town, man, and like synced up with a couple people that I've met along the way over soccer. I've always played soccer my whole life. So coming back, I was like, man, all right, like I've done a lot of shit, a lot of different shit, you know, like I feel like I'm ready to really take this to the next level. And coming back and seeing some professional sports teams leave, also seeing that like there's no swaggy soccer teams or, you know, I think the only cats that probably do it right are like the Brooklyn Nets. You know, they have like little swag in their step, and they think about design and all that. And so I wanted to really change the game in that front, and brought this like idea of design-led, impact-led, you know, fashion-forward thinking. And my co-founders all really subscribed to it and brought different assets and tool sets to the table, which helped us really then formulate the concept, roll out the brand, get the investments, and then from there, man, it's been a fucking blur.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Wow. That sounds like an amazing story because I feel like it's super relatable. Because like you said, as minorities, the number one thing that our parents instill in us is success, right?
Yeah.
And that's only because they just went through so much to get you here. You know, my mom always tells me, she says, I brought you into this world, I can take you out, you know?
For real.
And I think it's like that mindset of like, okay, you know what? I did all this work. I went through all this for you to get you here so you can have that opportunity, you know? But I think now more than ever, you know, people are actually able to take their passion and something that they actually enjoy, you know, like to do, and turn it into a business or turn it into a huge, you know, movement within their community that now, you know, they're feeding multiple industries, you know? And you can like really, you know, because like you said, the number one thing is just being able to really impact whatever you're doing.
Right.
You know? And you were doing it back when it wasn't cool to do it. Gary Vee says that. Do you know who Gary Vee is?
Yeah, of course, man.
Yeah, Gary Vee, he says, you know what? There was a point where being an entrepreneur wasn't so cool. And this was back in, you know, like I said, 2011 and stuff. You were posting very like spiritual things. You were posting very entrepreneurial stuff. And I'm able to resonate to that. And then I'm able to see you now at 32. And I'm like, yo, if I keep doing the things that Edreece is doing, eventually I can create something for myself. And now I'm able to live the life I want to live.
Man, 100%. Well, first off, like I'm humbled that you appreciated my journey, because that means a lot, man. And I think that's the incredible thing. Yesterday, I read a crazy quote that changed my perspective of the work we do in this world. And it was about how, you know, to be successful and to create things that people appreciate, you have to be with the mindset that you're creating gifts for people. So if my podcast isn't giving a gift to the listener, if what I'm talking about isn't impacting someone, they're not going to see me as valuable. Right. They're not going to value the time that they spent. And so in a similar fashion, you know, our people getting gifts when they come to the Roots games, right? Okay. Yeah. Are they coming and are they leaving enjoying this shit?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And I always think about Disney, bro.
Okay.
Talk about Disney's, talk about Apple's, talk about Nike's. Let's talk about it a little bit because not many people know the layers and levels that are within this shit.
Okay. Yeah.
Nike, for example, man, and we're with Puma, so forgive me, but you walk up into a Nike store, bro. Like, why is it that Nike stores are considerably more hot than other stores? Like, it's because they want you to feel comfortable while you're shopping.
Wait, you're talking about like physically hot?
The temperature.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
They pump the temperature to make it, a bit more than what you would experience at room temperature, because psychology and research shows that you relax and you start to reduce the guards up and so on. Yeah. Whereas, in most grocery store type settings, they pump down the temperature to get people moving throughout the store.
Yeah.
Because the whole point of retail is so that you can keep moving and you can browse other things. Whereas Nike's approach is like, you can calm down and you can relax and you can feel good about what you're doing. And Apple, man, when I spent time there, we would put scents in the vents so that when people were buying product, they would remember the experience of the product based on the smell.
Wow.
So when they come back again, there's a connection point. You feel me?
The smell.
Yeah. And so the human senses matter. Disney, why is it that like it's so magical to people? Right?
Yeah.
It's because it's a bunch of like animatronics and experiences.
Right.
And you don't see the madness behind it. You don't see the mess that is being created behind it. But you just see what the output is.
Right.
And it's magical.
Yeah.
And people walk away from it happier. So we approach it, and my staff always gets so angry at me for using this example. But like, how can we be Disneyland? How can we give gifts to people that is magical, and then have those gifts be Oakland in a bottle? Like really encapsulate what Oakland is as a community. Because often too many cats be talking about the negatives, right?
Yeah.
The politicking, the this, the that. I mean, honestly, bro, like we all ain't got time.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen too many people pass the past 2 years for me to start politicking and worry about who's doing what. I just don't got time for that shit. So what I got time for is happiness.
Yeah.
And what I got time for is trying to create happiness for people.
Right.
And so that's the model we're trying to build, man, is like gifts. Give gifts to people. And I've always been that way, man. Like, the most impactful people in my life were people that gave me gifts. So I got to do the same,
Yeah. So. No, I totally agree. And, the reason I'm looking at my phone right now is because I have a bunch of notes because, like I said, the journey you've been able to go on, I think people should just look at you and just be like, yo, this is 10, 12, 13 years of entrepreneurship and life that I can just learn from, and I think that's the gifts that you're talking about, where it's like you're just putting out a bunch of gifts right now. Like I was able to come here, like get inspired. So now, you're putting that forward to me, and now I'm excited to see who I can put that forward to.
Man, energy is real. You and I talked about this before we started. Energy, man. I mean, you can't just put shit out and expect it to die.
Right.
Like, it's going to be received by someone. It works the same way when you put negative energy out too, bro.
Yeah.
People receive negative energy and then reciprocate. So I try to make sure to be conscious of the energies I put out. And I've been doing it for 13 years, bro. In 13 years, I'm grateful for social media because it actually allowed for people to be able to interact with that over time.
Right.
But I'm also out there trying to do it in real life as well, because I know that like word of mouth marketing is always going to be the biggest impactful tool.
Right.
It's touching people physically in their lives, talking to people, giving them gifts in real life. So anyways, man, like, thank you for recognizing that, man. I appreciate you. That's really humbling. Honestly.
Absolutely. Yes. And I definitely wanted to get into like who you're tapping into to keep growing that. Right. Because I think that's the most important part too is, respectfully, a lot of people can do it for 1 day, 2 days, 2 weeks, but doing it consistently, it almost has to become a part of you. Right.
Oh yeah.
So like, is there anyone that you're constantly tapping into, to help you keep elevating that?
Yeah. So for me, man, this dates back like 10, 12 years now. Through the brand and marketing work that I was able to be doing for so long, designing little album artworks for certain big artists now, and I won't name drop because I hate doing that. But like, I've been tapped in, and I've been able to like touch and experience other people's work, you know? And Virgil Abloh for me was bar none, like biggest, besides the Kobe's and the athletes that like I grew up watching and absorbing. Virgil Abloh for me was a big inspiration. And there's many layers to this, bro. It's humility. It's the humbleness he had. You know, I was able to be fortunate enough to get in touch with him via like WhatsApp, back and forth. And like, this cat was the freaking creative director at LVMH, and he still had time and energy to respond to someone that he probably would never fuck with in real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But was just like, he did that frequently. And for me, that's a lesson I always learn is like, if people are appreciating your time, you got to be able to reciprocate that. And I think Virgil, from a lot of people's opinions, did that for people. And that was a huge humility lesson for me. And secondly, he was able to really put out creative shit constantly without feeling, you know, tired of doing it.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, man, that's the biggest, everyone goes through that. Everyone hits that wall at some point. And I will say, my sister and I talked about this. I think when you've gone through enough shit in your life, you get hardened. Yeah. My grandma, my other grandma before she passed, was talking about, and I asked her, I said, how are you all so tough? You know, like her husband passed at like 30 or something like that, you know, and she raised like 12 kids, brought them over, fucking war, all this shit, right? So, you know, all I've known is powerful women, by the way, in my life, like, you know, all the other cats, you know, but she talked about, she said, Ma sang Joshiden, which in our language means we are made from stones. Wow. And, you know, I was like, what does that even fucking mean? Like, how do you even just say that to someone and then, like, you know?
Not really
explain. Yeah, and that's, you know, man, the OG wisdom is crazy. So, like, so I like thought about it, and after she passed, I had this epiphany of like, man, it's because rocks aren't formed overnight. They actually are layers and layers of time and history and sediments just like forming. Yeah. And over time it becomes hard. Yeah. And, you know, I think that's, for me, the advice I give my little sister was like, yes, you got to pace yourself, but at some point you hit a level of like, this is normal now. And then you can tap into another thing. I've talked to friends that have kids now, and I'm like, bro, how do you have a kid with like being so busy? And they're like, bro, like once you have the kid, something in your brain changes and you like tap into reserves. Right. Okay. And like, I feel like in a similar way, man, when you're like backs against the wall and you're going through some shit, you hit a new level. And if you view it that way, you're just hitting new levels. And you're just sustaining those new levels, you know? I actually like tweeted Gary Vee this. I'm like, man, do you like even sleep? You know, like this fool feels like he's just constantly fucking going and going and going and bouncing off the walls. And I'm like, dude, I wonder if he sleeps. Yeah. Like, when does he eat? Like, you know? But you hit new levels, bro. And I think an example of him and others, celebrities, that hit levels of like, okay, it was uncomfortable, but I got it. Okay. Now what's the next uncomfortable?
It's like a new standard.
Exactly, bro. Okay. They're destination addicted.
Yeah. Okay.
They hit somewhere and then it's like, all right, what's the next? And what's the next? And the journey is actually more important than the actual destination. And that's, I think, the mind shift at some point for me. And now it's just like, all right, what's next? You know, how can we keep moving and shaking? So
yeah, it's like The Alchemist. You ever heard of The Alchemist or read the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, you know, he kind of goes and try to find that treasure, but you know, the whole time it's like, no, it's who you're finding, who you are.
Yeah,
you know, and I think I'm able to resonate to that a lot, because I feel like, especially because of social media, we almost only look at the end goal, or you know, that's kind of what people make it seem almost.
Totally, bro.
But there's, like you said, there's so much in the back end that just like that goes on through that behind Disney that no one sees.
No one sees that shit. They just see the output. Yeah. And you know, that's a good point, bro. Like, I feel like it's our duty as people that are creating things, that we don't burden the people that we're creating shit for with the process. You know what I mean? Yeah. Some cats, like, and I've seen it, and I gotta do better at doing it, but it's like, you can't be creating shit and then be complaining about it at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then people will sniff it and then they don't fuck with it.
Yeah.
So you have to almost like hide it, but at the same time, it tricks people into thinking that it's easy. Mm-hmm. It's not easy at all.
Right.
Like nothing is easy. Life is not easy. Accomplishing things is not easy. Staying in shape ain't easy. And at some point, man, I think you just have to like accept that it's not easy. Allow it to be a part of your identity, and then you know, you're moving. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And one of the biggest things I hear you talking right now is creation. So this is one of the questions that I came up with, kind of just viewing who you were in your journey. And my question to you is, how important is it for people to create ideas, visions, and passions? Like in general, how important do you think it is for someone to actually put that will behind in that work?
I think, man, it's a fantastic question, bro. And it's the essence of life, right? I mean, you and I were created. Like the chair we're sitting on, someone had an idea and was like, fuck, I'm tired of standing. Like,
my legs are
I need a hack. Bro, I had the thought the other day of those poppet sockets on the back of the phones. And I'm like, man, millionaires and billionaires were created because someone created a product and was like, oh, this should be hurting my thumb. And then all of a sudden, an entirely new dimension got open with the poppet sockets.
Wow.
So like we are in constant creation mode and we don't even fucking know it.
Yeah. I really like the word you said, opening a new dimension. Yeah. Because when you do that, it's energy. Yeah. And I think when you really accomplish something, like you said, and you're really like success driven and maybe not result oriented, but knowing that whatever work you're putting in, there's gonna be that satisfaction eventually. I call it we were just talking about it, delayed gratification, right?
Yeah, bro. Yeah, delayed gratification.
Can you talk about that? Because I feel like, especially now that we're in the microwave era where everything is kind of expected to come quick,
cookie cutter, and
can you talk about that?
Shit, I mean, I deal with it every day, bro.
Okay.
If I'm honest with you, like I would say, it's probably the biggest thing for me that I need to work on. I'm very, very OCD. I'm a perfectionist. I try to have the result be like perfect. I want it right now. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes that is the biggest detriment, right? So in the org, we actually have something called quote unquote pulse check meetings.
Okay.
Right? Because if you don't have pulse checks for yourself and your life and your work, you're going to constantly be tricked by yourself to think that it's just going to happen. Right? So what we do is we get together and we say, all right, well, how is this video doing?
Yeah.
It's about 60%. Perfect. Now I know that we're at 60% and we got 40% left.
Okay.
What do I got to do to get there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so in a lot of ways, we post-check our way through things until it's 100. Okay. And that way, you're almost appreciating the step in the journey through the progress versus the actual 100% mark. Right. And so it's difficult. I say that so easily, but like personally, bro, like I want to get in shape again and I want to play soccer.
Right.
I go out there and I tweak my back because my ass thinks I can still play. But like I need to take time, I need to get in shape again. I need to do 1 mile, 2 miles, right? So I'm at 20% right now and I got to get to 100 and that's going to take time.
Right.
But at least I can check myself along the way,
Yeah.
But a delayed gratification, I think, is like, it's the biggest trick in life, man. I mean, if you can understand that and hack it, biggest cheat code. Because you can do shit and leave it and then not get tripped out on yourself.
Right.
And then come back to it when it feels right. You feel me?
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. I'm working on it still.
Yeah. And one thing that I've been constantly working on, because as a child, it affected me so much, was emotional intelligence. And I think it's really not talked about enough, because especially as like entrepreneurs and stuff. It's because you're gonna get your heart broken so many times as an entrepreneur, but you got to be able to manage those highs and the lows. So what do you do to kind of manage yourself and kind of stay grounded when everything, when let's say Bruce just scored that last winning goal, or the sprinklers aren't working, your field's getting flooded. How do you manage all that?
Yeah, for viewers and listeners, we pulled up to the facility and the sprinklers were going off to a point where they forgot to be turned off, and there's like puddles out here, and it's like you go into problem solving mode, you know, and like yeah, I like to joke and say like I'm not the chief marketing officer, I'm the chief problem solving officer, because like every day some shit's either breaking or fixing, you know, and you gotta have that mentality of like at some point you go away from doing the day-to-days to then looking at it from 50,000 feet, and you're looking at things different from how everyone else is. Okay. Because also, bro, I'm an owner, I'm an operator, I'm on the board. I mean, there's a lot of complexities there. So I'm not only in the day-to-day, but I also have to think on a higher level, what's my fiduciary duty to the club? How are my decisions and decisions of others impacting the success? Wow. Right? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, man, you have to be financially sustainable in order for you to exist 100 years. Yeah. So you see, this is the challenge. However, what we're trying to do is trying to convince people that like leaning into purpose and leaning into community actually turns into money. Yes. Versus the other way around. Yeah. Most cats think that like you just create some shit and it happens. You have to do the work and then the money follows that. Right. So yeah, it's a challenge every day, bro. But you know, EQ and your emotional intelligence, I think, is something that cannot be taught, bro. I think that's like, well, I take that back. I admit, like, I think it's you either have it or you don't. Okay. Okay. So it can be taught, but you either have it or you don't got it. Right. And getting it is very, very difficult. And I attribute like being foreign and having parents that aren't from here and, you know, being humbled a lot in my life to having some level of emotional intelligence, right? Yeah. Reading a room, knowing when to say certain things and not say others. And I think I've met a lot of privileged people that have some EQ, and it comes from discipline and good backgrounds and being raised, or maybe they went through some difficult shit. Okay. And then, bro, I've met some cats that are privileged and don't have EQ. Jeez. And my God, you know what I mean? Yeah. And those are the people that are creating inhibitions in our life. They're the ones that are closing doors and creating problems for Black and brown people. Yeah. And they're doing it subconsciously, and they don't even know it. And that's the scariest thing, you know? So EQ is massively important, and sometimes you can teach it, sometimes you can't. But for the most part, you either have it or you don't. Y'all cats have it, man. I met you guys. And
appreciate that. Yeah. You know, and yeah, that's the reason why. Because I honestly, like when I, especially if I'm in a room with people who are better than me, first of all, I always want to be in that room. And second, I try to bring my weaknesses up just so I can get new pinpoints and new perspectives on that. You know? So like, that's why, you know, for example,
bro, you guys are mad younger than me. What you talking about? You're already like, bro, when I was your age, I don't know what I was doing, like for real. Yeah. So I would say like, don't discount yourself, you know, in that regard. And I also, man, when I hire people, I don't hire them based on resumes. I've hired people in my staff, on the marketing staff, that are way younger, way more brilliant than I am. And I make those hiring decisions because I know I could work for those people one day. Wow. Right? Yeah. So that's how that's my barometer, is like, can I work for this person? Jeez. Yeah, I actually would. Yeah. And I would not dislike it. And when you make a decision based off of that kind of level of standard, you're then making a human decision. Right. You're not making a resume decision. I think there's some like level of you got to have a resume to, you know, you got to know how to pick up a camera to do it, you know? Right. But at the same time, like there's intangibles, and that's how I gauge things. And, you know, you mentioned walking in a room and taking people's energies and absorbing it. Man, I have a problem with talking too much. I probably display it. Me too. I know. So that's actively what I'm trying to do, is like listen more and like tell myself to shut the fuck up when I need to. And oftentimes it get me in trouble too. But you know, it's also brought me to this point. Right. So like I'm trying to figure out like how do I balance this shit? Yeah, exactly.
No, I feel you. And it's just, I think it's one of those things where it's like, I'd rather be excited and over, you know, than to bring the wrong energy. Because that way you can kind of contain it a little bit, you know?
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah, for real. Because the adverse is like, you just don't bring the energy, and you just, you know, you're sucking the room's energy, you know?
Like, it's almost like the way I look at it is like, okay, it's like a kid in the candy store, you know? Because like I love people. So when I'm around people, I'm the same way. I'm like constantly chopping it up.
Yeah.
But when I'm my friends, I'm like, bro, like, please interrupt me. Like, tell me to shut up, please. You know?
Yeah, accountability is huge. And that's also like, you got to surround yourself with people that aren't just yes people. You know, like that's key, man. And that's tough on the ego. You want people sometimes to be gassing you up. Right? Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, every time I've been humbled, man, I remember, man, like even when I was a kid, bro, kid, my mom and dad, we moved into a new house and my little cousins spilled Coke on the carpet, brand new carpet. And I got hella mad, bro. I was like probably like, what, 11, 12? And I got hella mad. I'm yelling at them. Why'd you spill this fucking Coke on the carpet, right? And my older cousin pulls my ear and he throws me in the bathroom, beats my ass, and he goes, man, like, that's your little cousins. Like, carpet's carpet, bro.
Wow.
Right? Like, and I'm like 11, dude. And I'm just like, but it's still in my mind. Jeez. Right? Like, the cat humbled me. Still in my mind. Wow. My uncle, man, one day we got out the car and he made a joke. Again, I was like 13, 14. I'm like, man, you're stupid. Right? He said, man, you're never supposed to talk to your elders like that. Slapped the shit out of me. But like, you know, those moments for me, like I still got it in my head. I'm like, they older, I got to respect them and I got to be, you know, and that's how I navigate rooms. Yeah.
And for example, you know, we brought up Nipsey Hussle. I always bring up Nipsey, man. I'm telling you, like I have certain mentors that I just feel like I know. And honestly, I told Alex before we came over here, I said, man, I'm so excited to meet Edreece just because you can't have enough people like you in your corner, even if, you know, whatever happens after this. But I know, like, it's kind of like when you go somewhere and you're like, oh shit, like, who's here that I'm kind of like, you know, like, okay, I see that guy. So now, you know, it becomes a little bit easier to navigate.
Yeah, 100%, man. I mean, a big part of my inspiration is knowing that there's like other brown, black kids that are within the same age group that will say, fuck, if you figured out how to navigate it, I can too. You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
But it's not just doing it that creates that pathway. Like, you have to actively hold the door open. You know, a lot of people will open a door, they'll reap the benefits, and they won't leave the door open.
Right.
And streets and time don't lie, bro. I don't have to name cats that do that, but like, those cats get exposed. Like, the streets and time don't lie. My family taught this to me, plain and simple. Like, if you a sucker, you're going to be exposed.
No, yeah.
You know, if you opening doors and you keeping it for yourself, you're going to get exposed. So the streets won't lie. And every time I've moved different, the streets didn't lie. And I corrected it. You know, I've been humbled. And so I fully, man, like it's my duty and obligation. I'm here to do it. It's hard work personally, but, you know, at the end of the day, you know, seeing people inspired by it, I think for me is like, I tried to do that on the field when I was playing soccer.
Yeah, definitely.
It didn't work out. I couldn't hit this level, but now I'm doing it at different, you know, on this side. So,
and just look at that story. Like you said, you know, a ton of people that were part of the soccer community, you know, obviously the goal is to eventually go score that winning goal for your world, you know, for your country in the World Cup. Yeah. Everyone kind of has that dream. But if you really think about it, that dream is only exposed to at least probably like 20 people in your lifetime.
Yeah.
You know? But I guess I'm being a little realistic now, but what I'm trying to say is you're still able to make that impact even deeper than that. Like, for example, instead of you just being that one player, now you have access to talk to a bunch of players.
Yeah.
You know, and what I'm trying to say is, like, for example, if we're having this conversation, do you have these types of conversations with them, or do they have that access to be able to do that at least?
Man, I love to tell the players all the time, and they'll have to fact check this when they hop on with y'all. Is like, you know, we're a creative resource. So there are so many numerous examples of beyond just the soccer playing life, our players have gotten into the NFT space. Okay. That have created their own cafes, that have, you know, tried to do their own shit because they were able to find a different pathway or learn something along the way. And granted, bro, we're very young. Like, this is our second year in the USL. Eesh. And so I would like to think that, like, the club is doing a good job, and I think my department, marketing, media, creative, is doing a good job of being resources for players when they need it, because the players are the pipeline and the heartbeat of this club. Right. If we're not creating pathways for them or educating them, how do we expect the club to grow? You know, For some players, playing is everything.
Right.
Right. And when they can't play, life crumbles.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to educate people about is like, man, you can only play soccer for so long. Right? At what point are you going to be 45 years old and you're going to think you still got the game? Nah, bro. Right. You got to think about something different. Like, right. You know? And so right now, you got to be the best player on the field and show up for the community. But at the same time, you're developing skills that are going to help you elsewhere. And I'd like to argue, bro, that like keeping the mind sharp in different domains, right, actually helps you play and be more creative. Our technical director, Jordan Farrell, talks about how he wants the playing style, and so does our coach, Juan Guerra. He wants the playing style to mimic the streets of Oakland. Tight spaces, you know, sometimes bumpy.
Right.
Sometimes you hit a pothole and you're like, where'd that shit come from?
Them potholes, bro.
But like, you know what I mean? And, you know, you have people smashing red lights and not giving a shit. So like, but you got to be able to adapt. Right. You know, and that's the style that we have is like be comfortable in tight spaces, adapt, creative, fun, possessive. And so, yeah, man.
Yes. And I think the number one thing I'm taking from that too is just the word identity, right? Because I think that's the number one thing that as a collective, I think people struggle with whenever they're starting anything is like creating that identity, right? Yeah. And then, like you said, it's deeper than that soccer player because at the end of the day, you know, not all these guys are from Oakland, right?
No.
No, okay. So these are players that just respectfully are their career and they'll come sign to a club, right?
That's right.
And you're making sure that, like you said, when it's deeper than that, it's like, what are you when you step off that field?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
And when you come to Oakland and you're able to experience a game at Laney College, can you appreciate what is being built here? You know, our tagline is Oakland first always. I mentioned it. And it don't necessarily mean you have to be from Oakland to appreciate what we're trying to accomplish. Right. If you're a good human being and you respect the culture that exists here, you should be an Oakland fan. Yeah. You know, we have so many cats wearing Oakland Roots gear everywhere. You know, Brentwood, LA, you know, New York City, like wherever it is, you know, there's people that are rocking with the Roots because of what we're trying to instill, which is this notion of diversity, respecting the arts, the cultures, the humanity, the political activism, knowing our history. And most of our players get this education when they come to our club. Yeah. And they get to know, you know, if they're not actually from here. Yeah. And that helps them really, like, when they put on the jersey, it helps them really want to play for the town in a way that, like, going to, I don't know, Phoenix or Louisville or whatever, you're not going to get that energy, you know? Yeah. And I'll tell you right now, our players talked about it on Max Orange. So our player actually has a podcast. It's called Marathon Minute. I plugged him. Yeah. You know, the players were chopping on that, and they're like, yeah, like Oakland just has a different energy, man. Like we've played everywhere, but when we're home, it's just different. You know, like there's a buzzing feeling and energy. And the humans in Oakland are some of the most incredible people I've ever met in my life. And when they come to the games and they appreciate the things that are happening, it's just like it makes it all that much more worth it for me. You know?
Yeah, and like you say, it's tying all up together with everything that you're trying to do, or with you guys, what you guys are doing. Right. You know, it's just honestly, in my opinion, it's just a matter of time. Because like you said, it's just a solid foundation that you're building. Because now, whenever someone comes here, even as a player, I'm thinking, man, if I see this environment, like you said, you have to be a good human being. And when you build that foundation, you have a bunch of human beings in one building chasing one common goal. It can get scary what you can accomplish with that.
Man. That's a hell of a synopsis. Like, you hit the nail on the head, bro. Like, that is the literal recipe. Is like, if you can create a village of people that believe in the same things, common goal, as you mentioned, you can accomplish a lot of amazing shit. Key to that is just consistency. You know? Like, how can you sustain it long term? Right. And luckily, Oakland has been a really resilient, amazing place through history and has not shaken up. So, you know, we try to embody that same spirit. Yeah, no, you know, and like I said, it's the vision is crystal clear. I can't wait to go to a game. Like, it's only gonna get bigger, honestly. Thank you. Is there any? Well, one last question I want to ask you is, what's the best advice you've ever gotten? Oof. Dang, bro. I know it's been a long journey, so it might be kind of hard to. Yeah, there's a lot, man. If I can encapsulate it, well, I guess I'll say it this way, man. Like, it's not the best advice that I've gotten. It's the best thing I've read that actually allows me to appreciate the advice that I've gotten in my life. And so I'll explain. In this book that I read in college, read books, kids. It definitely works. It talks about how Indian time, Native American time doesn't exist because, you know, they're walking one step behind their future skeleton and one step ahead of their past skeleton. And they don't need to wear a watch because the skeletons remind them of what time it is. And so they're just trapped in the now, right? And that for me was like mind-boggling to read because every setting that I've ever been in, here right now with y'all enjoying this moment, I've tried to be as present as possible. Right now. Like, I can't control what happened, can't control what's gonna happen. I'm here right now, we're chopping. And when I've gotten advice as well, I've tried to like absorb that advice in the moment, in the now. And that's helped me like really take that advice to the next level and not just let it fizzle, you know? And so I hope that answers the question. But that's kind of like the biggest thing in my life that's been super helpful. And of course, actions that people have done for me. I mean, that's like a whole different level of gratefulness, you know? For people have done a lot of shit for me, so.
We appreciate your time. Speaking of you doing something for somebody, it was an honor coming here, honestly.
Nah, man, I'm so excited you guys were able to see the space. I mean, we just finished up recently, so it's only right. And, I can't wait to do it again, man. I appreciate you. You guys have an amazing future ahead of you.
Thank you so much.
On the record, so everyone can see, like for real.
Yeah, you know, my guy Alex is a real deal. When you were talking about the yes man, he is that guy, or not the yes man. He's the guy that'll always challenge my thoughts. And that's why I have, you know, we're with each other all the time, is because we clash heads, but it's in a way where like get it right, so then there's no question. So it's like, okay, you're gonna do this? Why? Okay, but why? Why shouldn't we do this? And it's just like so much questions. And I think, you know, you need people around you like that, because like you said, if you have someone that's just telling you yes all the time, it's like, what are you actually doing for me? Respectfully.
Yeah. And creativity comes from conflict, bro. Not the conflict that we talk about, which is like fighting. I'm talking, you know, dissonance, right? Like uncomfortabilities. You know, sometimes you don't agree. Sometimes you have a different opinion. But like creativity comes from that. So keep it rocking, y'all.
Yes, sir.
You got our support. So.
Thank you. So speaking of creativity, you know, we got our guy a shirt for our brand. You know, on the front it says future potential. Because, you know, everyone has it, so feed it, you know? How do you feed it? Listen to my guy, listen to the rest of the episodes, amazing, and that way you can get inspired. And then the back is our little artwork right here. You know,
that's fantastic.
So, this is for you. So I hope a large is cool. And then, bro, we want to make sure you go to Extra Mile. So I mean, that's what we get. That's like a generic, you know, we give all our guests that, that's, you know, awesome. But we want to make sure to dig a little deeper, man. And right before we came, we got you. We heard you were a big Niners fan, man. So we want to make sure. We want to make sure that
we in the Raiders facility with the Niner ball, man.
Hey, I'm sorry. Hey, don't look.
So so thank you, man. That's
absolutely,
awesome.
Bro. So we wanted to make sure to get you like a little collectible you could probably put in your office and stuff.
That's what's up, man.
So yeah, man. We know you're a big Bay Area
man.
49ers. So we appreciate you, dog.
The story for the listeners is like my dad, when they first touched down, you know, he was a big sports guy. Like big Oakland A's fan, was dying for the Oakland A's. I mean, that was like the first time I had garlic fries, right? And at the time it was like Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, you know, Steve Young. And so when I was born, like the first thing the cat did was like he put up a doormat in front of my room that was like Edreece's room, and it had the 49ers helmet. And so it's like it's in the blood.
You were born to be a Niners fan.
I guess so.
And they're the only football team in the Bay now, so
I guess so. Yeah, I mean it works. It works,
right?
The Raiders dipped on us. So
exactly.
It is what it is.
But we appreciate you, man.
Thank
any last
awesome.
For sure. Any last words you want to say before we dip out?
No, I just appreciate the time, man. And you know, this definitely won't be the last. We'll keep it rocking and keep it moving. So.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And whatever you need from us, whatever you want to go ahead and work, we're here for it. So
thank you, man.
Yeah, we're excited. Yeah.
We'll
You want to shoot some penalty kicks, free kicks? We down. So yeah, man. Neighborhood Hills, man. We appreciate you.
Thank you, man. Thank you, guys.